Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Upon Further Review. I'm Mike with Troy here, and today we're going to talk about the presidential nominee Joseph Biden's running mate, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a historical pick, being that she is both female and from more specifically of African American or actually Jamaican and South Asian ancestry. So. It's a big pick. It has been met with scrutiny from a lot of angles. Some people love the pick, some people hate the pick. We're pretty mixed ourselves, and there are reasons for that. And today we're going to kind of go over why, for people who don't know, why she is not liked by so many, and it's primarily because of her background, particularly her background when she was a district attorney and a prosecutor, and her track record of how she handled and mishandling of a lot of cases, and how she got her start, her political career start. So I want to segue to Troy, and he's kind of going to break down, do a rundown of kind of where she started and what has she been doing prior to being in the Senate to have so many people kind of up in arms. About this pick that Joe Biden made. So go ahead, Troy, and talk about just kind of where she's been, and kind of we'll discuss how all that how all that makes up to who people view her to be.
So the very beginning of Kamala's career, she begins her career in the DA's office, and she gets a lot of nice appointments to various appeals boards and things of that nature. And there was a lot of questions about some of these appointments when she had no experience and she was just a new lawyer, especially considering that at the time she was involved romantically with the current mayor at the time of San Francisco. They called him Downtown Willie Brown. Willie Brown was a known player, womanizer type, and also 30 years older than Kamala Harris. And she began a romantic relationship with him and conveniently got a lot of these early appointments in her career. People are free to have relationships with whoever they like. And there's a lot of questions asked about this in her early races and early political careers. And she worked to dispel some of the rumors that there was favoritism and things of that nature. But it was a bad look. Kamala Harris begins her career running for San Francisco district attorney, her career as a district attorney. That's ultimately what she was prior to getting her current Senate seat. And start right there in San Francisco. She runs in 2003, wins the election, and begins in 2004. And she really had a lot of controversial positions throughout her career as a district attorney. One of them was she began threatening to prosecute parents for truancy. And primarily, this is affecting poor, low income African Americans and minorities there in the city. Truancy is definitely a problem, but she made it a point to threaten jail time for parents if their kids were truant. In 2005, her aides asked that she adopt a policy disclosing past police misconduct to ensure defendants got a fair trial, and she opposed it. She opposed releasing past police misconduct to be used against cops in trial back in 2005. Kamala Harris faces a lot of legitimate criticisms and some that are unfair. I'm not going to sit here and be one of these people that question, her blackness and things of that nature. Her father was black. That makes her black. Her mother was Indian. Her father was Jamaican, but she's a black woman. Traditional African American, that's another story. But the reality is she's a black woman, and that's what I accept her for. But I'm here to discuss the actual decisions and policies that she made as a district attorney. When she held power, what did she do with it versus what she's telling us now? I'm very big and consistent on that, no matter who the politician. When you hold power, I will hold you accountable for what you do with it. Don't tell me you're going to change while you're conveniently running for a higher office. I personally do not like prosecutors for their role that they play in this very corrupt criminal justice system. Kamala Harris has been accused of prosecutorial misconduct. Kamala Harris has refused to prosecute police officers who engaged in killings of unarmed individuals right there in her city. And those are the things that I wish to hold her feet to the fire for. While we are in the midst of this racially loaded conversation around criminal justice and aggressive policing, the reality is Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor allowed for aggressive policing, encouraged aggressive policing, and looked the other way when cops had misconduct. Furthermore, even in criminal trials, her prosecutorial office, which she's responsible for, hid evidence that would exonerate people, including people on death row, and fought right down through every appeal to prevent that evidence from being used to release an innocent man. That is her record. And I find it difficult to trust and believe in someone who just, a few months ago was running for president herself. Her campaign imploded. It was a disastrous campaign. She had her own staffers writing editorials and coming out in public about how bad it was. She didn't even make it into the year 2020 running this campaign. Couldn't even make it to a vote, any of not the caucus or anything. Couldn't make it that far. And she has a record that is spotty as a prosecutor. And we deserve to fairly discuss, fair to her, fair to the public, her credentials while we're going through this movement, because she was a prosecutor. And we spoke about it, Mike, prior to this announcement. I said there were two people in my mind that were completely hands off for the vice presidency. One was Amy Klobuchar, because she was a prosecutor, and specifically one that refused to prosecute Derek Chauvin, who would go on to murder George Floyd. And the other was Kamala Harris, also because she too is a prosecutor with a history of prosecutorial misconduct. That's not to say that she's never done anything well, anything right, and doesn't have some good things to talk about, but prosecutors have been using high conviction rates and their tough on crime stances to further their career. That's how she was able to run for the Senate and win, based on her history as a tough on crime prosecutor. She did not run taking it easy on nonviolent drug offenses. She did not run taking it easy and reforming the police department or any of these issues. She was behind on a lot of these issues, and that's what we hold her feet to the fire for today.
When you say that, how tough on crime she was, that that in itself reminds me of why the law and order president backed her campaign. It's because he agreed with her very narrow-minded view of if you do the crime, you do the time, no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the laws on the books are correct, no matter if the evidence is tainted, no matter if there's misconduct with police. I need my conviction rate high because that's going to get me to the next level. And I question people. I question people who would kind of stoop to that level of just, when you really think about the idea of prison and taking somebody and throwing them into prison. A couple things. One is it ruins people's lives, right? Prison never makes a situation better, and that's why I personally believe that we over criminalize and we over institutionalize people when we throw them into prison. It really doesn't make them better. It doesn't reform them, right? When we see that we're throwing nonviolent, like petty drug users into prison, that's not better for the society at large. What happens is that user goes into prison. We as taxpayers have to pay for that. And when they get in, they learn no useful skills. Usually people, when they go to prison, they're hanging around nothing but criminals with no kind of formal structure around. So when they come out, 9 times out of 10, they're probably better at doing what they came in the first place for. And then they go back out to society without any kind of support. And as we know, they have a high recidivism rate, right? So as a prosecutor, just trying to lock up as many people as you can, knowing that when these people go in, they get chewed up by a system and spit back out. It's hard for them to find a job. It's hard for them to make anything, and they're going to get chewed up right back in the system as another +1 in your stat column. You had to know something was up. Now she's recently come out, is softening her position and changing her positions on criminal justice, and that's very convenient since she's running for office now. But the tape speaks for itself. I was very, very disappointed that Joe Biden picked her as his running mate, and I felt that if he wanted to get a qualified uh, African American female. There, he had Rice, he had Keisha Lance Bottoms, he had Stacey Abrams, he had other qualified picks that he could choose from. And like you said, Troy, when we discussed, he said, do not pick a former prosecutor, do not pick Klobuchar, and do not pick Harris, because both of these particular candidates have a terrible record when it comes to uh, holding police accountable and incarcerating as many people as they can. And then this awakening that we have, where finally the world is starting to pay attention to how corrupt the police and criminal justice system is in America. We can't just mix. It's not going to increase your chances. I think people are really just, Democrats in particular are really resting on their laurels here, thinking that, no matter who we put up or who they are, they're going to be able to win the race because Donald Trump is such a bad president. And that may have been true at one point, but as the polls suggest, and as Biden does gaffe after gaffe, and he's not really a popular pick. He's just a pick that people were like, okay, I guess we can go with him, right? You're starting to see that the polls are waning a little bit, and it really gives a chance for Trump to mount a comeback. People got to understand that there's not a lot of really crazy fanatic Biden supporters, right? There's really not, but there's a whole lot of crazy fanatic, make America great again. I'm gonna fly the flag. I'm gonna wear the hat. Though I'm gonna not wear my mask. I don't care. I'm gonna still go to a convention. Those type of people that will go out, campaign, do everything they can to get Donald Trump back in the office, right? You have those fanatics on one side and people on the other side who are like, man, as long as it's not Trump, I guess we'll put him in. That's not going to bode well when it comes down to election time. And I really think, and I'm scared that, because the Democrats have not taken really a calculated approach, that they're going to mess around and, just pretty much throw the election, because something that should have been a slam dunk, they're now making it up to, is actually going to be a heavily contested match.
I really think we're in for another 2016. I think it's interesting. Before George Floyd, Joe Biden, it made sense. I get it. But then after George Floyd, where we have now taken this heavy look at policing in America and the state of our criminal justice system, looking back at it, Joe Biden was the father of the crime bill. We call it the Clinton crime bill because Clinton was president, but Joe Biden was there in the Senate and helped author that bill and put a lot of provisions in it. He was for the very situations that created the over policing in America, extra cops, militarization, mandatory minimums, the whole 9 yards. So usually you want to get someone that covers your weakness when you're choosing a vice president. Barack Obama attacked Hillary Clinton from the left in that primary, and he was considered this leftist radical candidate, especially from the other side of the aisle. That's how they painted him. So what did he do? He went out and got Joe Biden as a vice president, somebody who was not going to take any spotlight at all away from him, someone who's able to go into those, blue collar towns, that political language they love using. And really, because he was more of a conservative Democrat, he gave him a balance and it assisted his campaign. Well, right now, Joe Biden needed someone to take pressure off of that balance for him. And I think he picked somebody who made it worse. I think Joe Biden had, I always use basketball analogy, 7-game series. I think Joe Biden had this election in a 4-1, winning in 5 games, if you will, landslide because of the backlash against Donald Trump. But here is the reality now. I think this is now going to go to a 7-game series. I think it's going to be a lot closer, especially with this pick, because you can't turn over a Twitter timeline or a Facebook timeline without seeing Kamala Harris getting lambasted. Some of it is unfair. I'm not here to talk about, her blackness. I'm not here to talk about her relationship history or her husband, who we never see and things of that nature. I'm talking about her record. In 2000, she was the San Francisco district attorney, 2004 to 2011. In 2010, she withheld information about a police laboratory technician who had been accused of intentionally sabotaging her work and stealing drugs from the lab. That affected the cases of mostly African American and minority men in jail. People are sitting in jail while you have a lab tech falsifying information. Have you ever seen How to Make a Murderer? Have you ever seen How to Cover Up a Drug Scandal? There's so many documentaries out there about this type of stuff But prosecutors, time in and time again, will look the other way to keep their conviction rates high and then fight tooth and nail over using that evidence to overturn convictions. Convictions went up when Kamala Harris stepped in. Some would say to me she does a good job, but the reality is the things that these types of prosecutors do to get those conviction rates high are often stuff that looks like that. It's pure misconduct and there are abuses of the system, and she engaged in it. She looked the other way when it came to these issues. She's out here threatening to lock up truant parents. And even so much so that, it came out today that Donald Trump himself donated money back to Kamala Harris during the same time frame as the Attorney General of California. And back then, a lot of people don't know Donald Trump, but a lot of rich people do this. They spend money on both sides of the aisle. But Donald Trump doesn't send his money to people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. He wouldn't send it to, if she was out at the time, the AOCs of the world, where she would lead people of that place, of that nature, of that political ideology. He sends it to the Joe Bidens. He sends it to the Clintons, and sends it apparently to people like Kamala Harris. And this is the same Donald Trump who Central Park 5 took out the full page ad, execute them all, no evidence, and things of that nature. Of that same law and order ilk, that's what Kamala Harris was. And I feel as though people criticize her with kid gloves because she is a Black woman. And they want her to be something, whether she actually is or not. Therefore, you must actually take what she did before running for office as the gospel. I don't want to hear you say it now. She's flip-flopped on issues even in the presidential race. There's a reason that the people were lukewarm to her. There's a reason people were lukewarm to her while she's running for president. There's a reason her campaign fell apart. And it's curious to me to see Joe Biden use those as the reasons, she knows how to run a campaign. She didn't. Her campaign was an absolute disaster. She went nowhere with it. Pete Buttigieg did a better job. Other people, Klobuchar did a better job, the campaign. At least they got delegates. And the idea that we can't criticize her or hold her accountable for her actions simply because there are people out there who so desperately want Donald Trump to lose this election that we're willing to accept anything. The reality is you're no different than those, MAGA hat wearers who there's no bad that they can see. They're going to keep supporting their candidate. This is the very problem that creates a two-party system where they can do whatever they want. Trump can murder somebody on Fifth Avenue, and Kamala Harris can have as much prosecutorial misconduct she wants. Joe Biden can lock up as many people as he wants with his crime bill, and we are just going to vote for our color no matter what because we don't want the other side to win. And that's the type of thing that makes politics continue to become increasingly polarized over time.
That really play out with your fringe voters, your swing voters, people who really don't strongly identify with the left or the right. And it really is going to come down to who upsets them more right before they walk into that poll, right? And, the Democrats don't have the luxury of playing dirty like Donald Trump can. Donald Trump can flat out lie. He can flat out say whatever he wants to. He can just flat out just deny and accuse and just say anything off the handle, and there's no accountability for it. He doesn't care. He'll deny it. He could say a lie right there. You check him on it, and he'll say, "I didn't say that." Like I've actually never seen anyone do anything like he's quite the way he's done it. And then he'll get people to believe that he's not the one wrong, you're the one wrong, and that you're asking loaded questions and that you're trying to come after him. I've never really seen somebody just manipulate a exchange like the way he does, right? It's if it wasn't so bad, it'd be almost all inspiring. It's like how can someone do this, and then how can you get half of the people in the country to believe you, right? So this is the guy they're going up against, right? This is the guy that's going to really step to him, and he's going to give him everything he got. Because you know what? He really doesn't want to lose this election. And it's not because he believes he can lead this nation. It's not because he believes he's the best person in the job. It's because of his ego. And anything that you can say about that man and his ego is he puts that thing first, right? Damn the country, damn his family, damn everything else, but his ego comes first. And this presidential election is going to get nasty, right? And it's going to be hard when you have two people and this reckoning of how police brutality and racial injustice and criminal justice reform and defund the police, all these things going on. These two candidates from the Democratic Party, Biden and Harris, I mean, they are anti what you would want right now. And it's going to be interesting. Like I said, people think it's going to be a slam dunk. Like you said, people, Biden had a really good lead. It's going to be tighter than a lot of people think. It's going to be tighter than a lot of people suspect. Back when Clinton was running, no one really was in love with her either. You know, but and you see what happened with that. He was able to still away a win. This is going to be the same thing. So, I'm interested to see. I mean, like you said, she can pivot on points, but your track record is your track record. Your history is your history. I understand the significance of you being a black woman sitting in the vice presidency, and I'm all for diversity. All throughout all levels of government. But it's not about diversity when it comes to this. It's about really trying to find the best person for the job. And you could have accomplished that and got a better candidate and still got diversity in the position. And that's the real shame. That's the crime that happened here, is that they made a bad choice. They made a bad pick. You could have had a strong, intelligent, articulate, very, and even in Susan Rice's experience, Susan Rice, you have even had experience of having it at VP Pitt, right? But instead, they went with one of the two choices that you just really couldn't go with, and that was Kamala Harris. So it's going to be an interesting election. We're going to, of course, be giving you our takes as they come, as things continue to evolve, and as things start heating up in this election cycle. It's a little scary, man. It's going to be scary, especially with all this mail-in, votes, and how you already see Trump is, positioning himself to discredit them all. And it's going to be this election cycle is going to be one of the nastiest you ever seen. So stay tuned, grab your popcorn, I guess.
And one quick point of order, I do want to say I do believe Kamala Harris is a strong, very intelligent, woman, but I also think she's quite ruthless and willing to do or say anything to achieve power. I think that's been from day one. The moment she showed up in the Senate, it was to snatch as much national airtime, as many quotes and eyesight, eyes on her, to immediately run for president. I think she saw herself pulling the Barack Obama move, but she's no Barack Obama. And that's not because of her gender either. It's because of her record. Barack Obama was beloved. No one had a bad thing to say about this man when he showed up. And he led and inspired hope and change. Now, whether that happened the way people expected once he actually got in office is another story. But coming into that election, the excitement was through the sky. The bumper stickers and shirts and slogans were everywhere. Here we are again, repeating 2016, where we're like, ooh, man, don't really like her. Ugh, I guess we're with her, and with Biden, I guess we're with him and her, his vice president. And the reality is, the president is chosen via the electoral college. What does that mean, and what is the significance of that? We're here in Texas. This state's going for Donald Trump. The end. Kamala Harris is from California. That state's going for Joe Biden. The end. The president will be decided by who wins Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, a few of these Midwest purple swing states. Virginia was a close call. That's what's going to determine the presidency. And Kamala Harris does not help you get Florida. I think you just firmly shoved that into the hands of Trump. No Republicans won without capturing Florida. And there was hopes and dreams of flipping Georgia blue if they got, Stacey Abrams and things of that nature. That's out the window now. And who you're trying to convince are those voters in the middle, because the reality is those who are staunch Democrats are going to support their candidate. The staunch Republicans are going to support their candidate. It is the independent voter that will decide the election and has decided pretty much every election, with the exception of Barack Obama's, because he won pretty handily. Does Kamala Harris help you get the voter on the fence in Ohio, the voter on the fence in Pennsylvania, the voter on the fence in Virginia, in Florida, in Michigan, Minnesota? Do you help there? Those are states that were won by less than 25,000 votes. And what happens is when voters feel disenfranchised because we see the clown show that's going on the right, and then we see this poor offering coming through the left, they vote third party. I voted third party last election. I did. I want to see the growth of the third party because I think we need more viable options. And you're not going to get a third party to grow if people just simply don't support them. I don't support people not voting. If you don't feel you want to vote for either one of those two candidates, remember there's a whole lot of down ballot elections. You still have to vote for senators, you still have to vote for congressmen, and you have to vote, most importantly, in many situations, for your local government. But at the national presidential level, oh, I absolutely invest in those third party votes. But this is why, when you're this tone deaf in this era of criminal justice reform, to bring out someone with easier points to attack because they sucked at criminal justice reform and they looked the other way when cops were committing crimes, and they actively engaged in prosecutorial misconduct. I don't know what you're thinking there. California, her being from California, that don't help. California is going blue. This did not help in any of those swing states, and that's why this election went from being advantage Joe Biden to being split down the middle, and the polls are going to show that. I'm going to tell you another thing. For those staunch MAGA hat wearers, they're going to have a few things to hold up on. Today, I think they announced peace possibly in the Middle East, or at least when it comes to Israel. A peace settlement got announced today. I really have to dig into the details of that. And the stock market is booming. That is the part of the economy that the rich and powerful obviously make their money on. That's booming, and unemployment is falling. If this continues along this trend, Trump is going to walk out there, take credit for everything, as if he was the absolute mastermind that resulted in all this happening. And he's going to absolutely abuse her, knock her over the head over her very own missteps, and Joe Biden's as well when it comes to their history of over policing, while at the same time he's a law and order candidate. He's the one who's saying, don't tuck their head in and knock them upside the head when you put them in the car. But he's going to use that exact same rhetoric to hurt them, because who's he talking to? The people in the middle, the people on the fence, and damaging the base of the other party. And that's what had to be considered when this election was made. It's a bad selection. There's no other way around it. There's a reason she didn't make it even to the year 2020 while running for president. Her campaign was an embarrassment. And you chose that person to be your vice president. I feel like this is Tim Kaine all over again. But at least with Tim Kaine, there was very little to say about him. He was just a boring milquetoast vice president that didn't hurt you in any way, shape, or form. I think Kamala Harris actively hurts. I think she actively harms this ticket because of her record. That's why we're having this conversation right here. That's why you can't turn over social media without seeing people trashing her for it. And again, some fairly, and there's definitely a lot of unfair trashing going on. Don't want to even engage or entertain that stuff. But this is the reality of it. And to simply say, don't talk about these things, close your eyes and pull the wool over it because we want to get the orange out, is not acceptable. Just because there are people out there that will vote for that man, no matter what, doesn't mean it's okay for us to do so and people who actually have morals and values to do so. That's just the reality of it. I'm someone who, I vote for people I believe in. I vote for people who have not, when it comes politically, people make mistakes, but first do no harm. She has done harm with her power, and now she stands before you telling you she'll do whatever it takes to win. We need criminal. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do this too. I'll do that too. Yeah, because you just ran for president, and we all are talking about Joe Biden will be the oldest president in history if he takes office. He's going to be 78, I think, in November. She's going to be actively trying to be vice president so she can become president herself. We are already talking about, we don't know if he'll make it through a first term. Knock on wood. Wish good health and long years on Joe, no matter he wins or loses. But the reality is, the man's old. And she is positioned herself to possibly become the vice president and even the future president by committing the same crimes that every prosecutor that's come before her has done. And some people will say, well, why can't she get it? Why can't she do it? Many prosecutors have done all these same things and launched their political careers. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm one of the people who I'm not supporting prosecutors who do that stuff. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk before you show up begging for more power and my vote.
hit the nail on the head there. It's really what have you done with the power you were given? You know, that you know, what she has demonstrated does not bode well for having giving her additional powers. And I know it sounds like we're really just piling on Kamala here, but it's not without its merits, right? You know, and I think it overall is a symptom of there was no really strong pick that came out of the Democratic Party. We wouldn't be having this conversation if Joe Biden was, let's say, as popular and as well loved as a Barack Obama. You know, it is really bad and it's really sad that there was no better primary candidate that could be put out there, and that the best for the VP pick wouldn't be that big of an issue. But like you said, you know, old Joe, I mean, he's getting up there, and you can see he's not as sharp as he was once was. And, you know, it's pretty evident. So the VP pick in this particular race for the Democratic side is very big. You know, I really do think they dropped the ball on it. You know, we'll like I said, we'll continue to monitor this and see how everything goes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to our previous podcasts. Like I said, we'll start creating these out a little bit more frequently. Please like, rate, review, and subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you love it, you hate it, whatever. If you want us to talk about something else, we're open to all your feedback. So once again, you know, thanks for listening to Upon Further Review, and we're out.